welcome to this special Autovista Group interview. I'm Daily Brief journalist Tom Geggus. Today I'm speaking with Petar Georgiev, advisor on innovation, generation and e-mobility lead at Eurelectric. We'll be discussing the green transformation of electricity grids and how it plays into electric vehicles. So without further ado, let's get straight into the discussion. So Petar, thank you very much for joining me. Now, there is a current drive towards low emission transport. We're seeing it across the EU, across the world. And this has really led us down a path of electromobility. But some might be concerned that an electric car is just going to run off power generated by a fossil-fueled power plant. And is this really a legitimate concern?
I would say that this is a concern that a lot of people are having. I'm aware that there's quite a lot of discussion as to what electric vehicles are powered with. But ultimately, we should try to keep an eye on the bigger picture. And that's what's the alternative to that? Is the alternative to use fossil fuels better than using, a dirtier grid where you have some coal and gas generation in the system? And the answer to this question is quite big because you do have to keep in mind of what's the actual carbon footprint in different countries at different times, and also how is this changing? Because for us in the power sector, we clearly see that the grid is becoming cleaner and cleaner. So that goes without saying. But if we have to wait to have a fully renewable grid and then only start to integrate renewables, that would be probably a very big mistake because we already see that there are ways to ensure that electric vehicles are brought in with a cleaner proposition, be it from manufacturers opting for production with renewables only, to charging that is happening also with renewables, and also in the context of battery sourcing. So there's a lot that is being done, and it actually improves the business case for electric cars even more. So I kind of welcome this debate because it really shows how much EVs are better.
Could you give me some potential examples of how the electricity industry is enabling low emissions transport in that case?
One of the main things that we look at right now is the integration of renewables in transport. And this, from our perspective, is mostly in the context of charging with cleaner energy. So a lot of our members, a lot of the European companies that are in the charging business, and also in the electricity industry in general, they do support such measures where you integrate cleaner electricity, be it through specific agreements where you install chargers or via markets with guarantees of origin. There are different ways, and it's happening. So definitely this is something that our industry is doing.
We're definitely seeing examples as well, I think, of in the UK, for example, there was recently a on-the-road charging point, kind of an EV-only service station that utilised solar panels to make sure that there was as much zero-emission energy going into cars as possible. Do we think the use of solar and wind is really going to be an attractive incentive for EV users to use a particular service provider, for example, if they boast that kind of service?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's the small sort of customer, the individual customer, which is, considering solar at home, for example. And there's also the bigger customer, which is, let's say, a fleet. A fleet could be, in the high numbers of tens of thousands of vehicles. And then actually it's very interesting when you look at certain cars that are, and also vans and cars that are used for commercial operations like logistics or bus fleets. There you have a very good opportunity to actually use renewables and have some sort of contract that connects renewables directly.
You mentioned there briefly as well, of course, a lot of electric vehicles we can expect to be charged at home with people coming back after the commute, plugging them in either through the window, as might be the case at some early stages. But as infrastructure becomes better, we might see wall boxes at home. But how do we think that domestic EV charging could be kept green?
Customers should be empowered, and that's the role of national regulators, to make a good environment for the driver to install and also have smart charging. So there is a very, I would say, developed market. A lot of companies are actually providing those opportunities. Sometimes we see that regulatory environment could be a problem, but even then we see that there's more and more commercial offers to ensure that. So that's something that shouldn't be a problem at all.
Of course, once an electric vehicle has reached the end of its life cycle and we might be looking to recycle some of its components, there's even a potential for, say, battery elements and components to then work back into the grid and be used in effect as part of a charging infrastructure. So really, even when an EV is done on the road doesn't mean that it's done in terms of the wider perspective, does it?
Absolutely. Actually, you can say that those batteries will be reused, but about 70% or so, or even more, is being recycled. So what they're left to use is those second life applications, and that can be in the form of repurposing cells and create new batteries that could be installed, for example, next to an ultra-fast charger, and that could be, sort of a buffer. You could also, actually right now, the European Commission is going in this direction with proposing some sort of funding for projects that include such applications to even more, stimulate them even more. And there's commercial interest again. Absolutely. I think when it comes to the reuse and repurposing of batteries, there's quite a lot of potential. And also, I think for companies that want to take a good stake in the battery market, they're already considering those applications.
Well, thank you very much for your time, Peter. I've really enjoyed speaking to you today.
Thanks for having me over, Tom, and all the best to you and to your listeners.
Thank you very much for watching this video. If you've enjoyed it, please don't forget to give us a like and subscribe. Also, have a look for us on Twitter, Facebook, and LinkedIn. And don't forget to subscribe to the Daily Brief email. If you've enjoyed this video, then it forms part of a larger multimedia article. We'll leave a link down in the show notes below. Thank you once again for watching. We'll see you next time.